Hello, welcome to Unit 3, Marketing. Marketing is absolutely the lifeblood in the real estate industry. So today you're going to learn a tiny bit about describing different marketing principles, describe various advertising activities and methods, and discuss how to develop an advertising strategy and plan and how to gauge its effectiveness. All right, let's jump right in.
Overview. The principal responsibility of a property manager is to make sure that a property generates income. To find the best possible tenants, it is essential that the manager conduct a marketing campaign that reaches the greatest number of potential tenants while at the same time maintaining cost effectiveness. Knowing various lease agreements and utilizing effective tenant management techniques are of little practical use unless potential tenants are actively attracted to the unit and the space is skillfully shown. Otherwise, it is unlikely that many tenants will be willing to sign leases or to pay the rent. This unit discusses a variety of advertising methods that managers may use to attract potential tenants. It also reviews selling skills that are useful to secure tenants who will stay for a long time and will faithfully pay the rent. Marketing principles. Key policy. The basic principles of marketing are know the product and the best source of new business is your present customer base. Thorough preparation is required to know the product, and maximum use of referrals is essential to any marketing effort. Know the product. Before putting space on the market, the manager should preview it to make sure that everything is clean and in good condition. Cleaning, painting, and any repairs should be completed before the space is shown to prospects. The property should be inspected between showings or periodically if it has not been shown recently. While inspecting the unit, the manager should identify the unique features of the building and of the particular unit, as well as any advantages and amenities of the general area, in order to highlight these in all marketing efforts. The property manager may be working in conjunction with independent leasing agents, as is often the case with commercial and industrial properties. If so, the manager must provide adequate information about the features and layout to the cooperating agents. If an independent agent cannot give a suitable presentation of the premises, the lease and commissions may be lost altogether. Use present customer base. Recommendations from satisfied tenants are the best and least expensive method of renting property. Tenants are most likely to give referrals on the basis of their own satisfaction with the space, but a tangible or cash incentive is sometimes offered for a referral that yields a new tenant. The referral method of renting space is most effective with multi-tenant properties and may be used for residential, commercial, and industrial space alike. Real estate license laws in all states prohibit splitting of commissions with an unlicensed person. In some states, that has been interpreted as prohibiting referral fees to any source, including paying fees to tenants who have made the referral. The manager should be familiar with local and state laws. At the very least, the manager should thank a tenant who supplies a lead on a prospect and should request permission to use the tenant's name when contacting the prospect. This can significantly improve the manager's chances of converting the prospect into a tenant. If the referred prospect signs a lease, the manager should personally thank the tenant who provided the lead, often with a small gift. This display of appreciation will encourage more referrals. Civil rights compliance. Advertising content must comply with various federal and state statutes and county and city ordinances. Advertising must avoid the appearance of marketing to one type of tenant and not others. The content should not be based on race, color, religion, national origin, familial status, or disability. Although these laws have particular impact on residential property, the property manager must be familiar with them when marketing any type of property. For example, display ads should display the equal housing logo and slogan. Failure to do so can be interpreted as prima facie evidence of discrimination. The logo is not required in a classified ad, however, the newspaper must carry an introductory paragraph to the housing classified section stating that the properties advertised are offered without regard to race, color, religion, national origin, sex, familial status, or disability, and that the newspaper will not knowingly accept discriminatory advertising. There are severe penalties for violations. Civil rights considerations are discussed in more depth in the unit federal and state laws. Equal housing. Opportunity. All real estate advertised in this newspaper is subject to the Federal and State Fair Housing Act, which makes it illegal to advertise any preference, limitation, or discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin, or an intention to make any such preference, limitation, or discrimination. The newspaper will not knowingly accept any advertising for real estate which is in violation of the law. All persons are hereby informed that all dwellings advertised are available on an equal opportunity basis. Marketing activities. Learning objective describe various advertising activities and methods. As a rule, a good product backed by a well-designed advertising and promotional program will rent faster in the marketplace and for a higher price than its average competitor. When the real estate climate is favorable, good property that is marketed effectively can be rented even at a premium rate. The following activities contribute to the property manager's goal of rapid rental to a good clientele at a profitable rate. Advertising methods. There is a saying in real estate, if prospects must call to ask the price, chances are they cannot afford the property. Likewise, if they must call to ask the location, they probably will not like the location. Effective advertising will offer both to cut out unwanted, time-wasting calls. Subsequent units explain which techniques and which media are more effective for marketing specific kinds of property: residential, office, retail, and industrial. The marketing techniques reviewed and illustrated in this unit are meant to clarify the manager's role in marketing space in general. Promotional efforts are used to obtain publicity without paying direct advertising costs. Promotion includes good public relations, cooperation with outside brokers, and periodic press releases. The property manager can choose from a number of advertising and promotional methods and media to reach a target audience. The choice for any given market situation depends partially on the type of property involved: internet marketing and social media. Because a bad website is worse than no website, with rare exceptions, the manager must rely on a team of professionals to develop a custom, unique, and searchable website for the rental property. Specialists are far more capable than the manager of using search engine optimization (SEO), that is, using the words and phrases that will result in a website appearing in search results. Google Analytics can determine how long someone stays on the website, and if they do not stay very long, can redesign the site to offer more relevant content. Possibilities for effective online marketing include drip email: design the program, determine how often it should be emailed, and then move on. Companies such as RentLinks and Postlets. How to use social media to market a property depends on the type of property and, very often, the age of the prospective tenants. While necessary, the manager and landlords must understand that it's not always easy to determine the return on investment ROI using social media. Essentially, the manager can quickly tweet new listings on Twitter, add a profile to the community's Facebook page, announce new status on LinkedIn, and use YouTube to show a short, interesting video that appears to have been professionally developed but was actually a collaboration between the manager and Videolicious.com. Prospective tenants, especially people younger than 30, search for vacancies and specials on Craigslist and look at the community's Facebook site to learn more about the community and its activities and to find other residents. Current tenants should be encouraged to like their community's Facebook page. The Facebook page is not where the manager should advertise move-in specials and discounts, thus alerting current residents about what they are missing, but it is to the manager's advantage to have as many likes as possible. The manager must never forget certain basics when marketing on the internet and using social media. Proofread the ad to ensure correct spelling and grammar. Answer the phone after running an ad, because most callers will not leave their names and phone numbers for callbacks. Provide high-quality visual content, because people process images faster than they process text. Get the lookers onto the community website and away from competing ads. Plan on repetition, repetition, repetition. Many state real estate commissions have enacted rules and regulations specifically pertaining to internet marketing by real estate licensees. Most simply state that the advertising be truthful and not misleading. The states that require more information generally want the licensee's name, location of home office, and states in which the licensee is licensed to be included on every page controlled by the licensee, but not on linked sites not controlled by the licensee. Above all, whether in print or on the internet, advertising should never be discriminatory. Signs. Signs are still the most effective method of advertising the availability of residential, office, and retail properties. The sign should identify the management firm, the type of space, and the person to call for further information. For rent signs should be clearly visible, simple, attractive, and in good taste. They should never include anything that could be considered discriminatory. Highway billboards should be used when advertising larger industrial and commercial properties because industrial users often drive around to observe buildings and call on people in the area they prefer. Billboards are directional in nature and should carry only basic information about the property and its location and the person to contact. Larger residential and commercial properties should have a small office on the premises where tenants and prospects can make inquiries. The building directory in the lobby should list this office and its room number under several headings: building office, management office, or rental office, for example. Newspaper advertising. Although newspaper readership is down, many prospective tenants do, in fact, consult the for rent section in the newspaper when they are looking. Undoubtedly, certain segments of the population, such as the baby boomers, are most likely to continue to use the newspaper, while the younger prospects may rely on the internet, at least initially, in their search. In order to obtain the best results, the manager must carefully track each call and visit to determine which type of advertising is best for a particular property. Newspaper advertising is divided into two types: classified and display ads. Classifieds are relatively inexpensive per line of copy and are the most prevalent method of advertising residential properties. Classified newspaper ads are listed alphabetically by subject and sometimes by area at the back or in a separate section of the paper. In general, the best day to advertise is Sunday. Some papers offer a discount for the purchase of 3 or 4 consecutive Sundays. The ad can and should be canceled as soon as the lease is signed, thus saving on the advertising cost. Display ads carry greater visual impact than classifieds because they are larger and more elaborate in design. They also cost more. Display ads for industrial or commercial property often appear in the financial pages but may be placed in any section of the newspaper. Developers of large residential projects may promote new property complexes by inserting quarter-page or larger ads in the real estate sections of major papers, periodicals, and other publications. Regional magazines and trade journals are still reliable and effective vehicles for advertising real estate, especially commercial and industrial properties. Most periodicals accept both classified and display ads. Advertising in carefully selected non-regional journals can generate a list of qualified prospects, but the manager must be sure the property is large enough and has enough general non-regional appeal to merit this type of marketing. On a local level, properties can be advertised in programs distributed at sports events, plays, concerts, and other events. This method can be effective for residential, commercial, and industrial spaces. Many metropolitan areas have apartment guides, apartment locators, or vacancy listings that are most effective for larger residential communities. These publications are usually distributed free at numerous high-traffic locations, supermarkets, airports, gas stations, and mini-markets. Apartment guides may be more expensive than newspaper advertising, but they can be quite useful for establishing a presence in the marketplace as they tend to encourage a steady stream of inquiries. These may be printed monthly or bi-monthly, and many are linked to property websites. Radio. Radio advertising is expensive, and although its audience is large, it is not select, which means many listeners are not potential buyers. Careful analysis of the cost per prospect is critical in broadcast advertising, for returns in many cases do not justify the expense. Radio is best employed on a community level for promoting large residential, commercial, and industrial developments. Local stations in major metropolitan areas can advertise available space in surrounding suburbs. Television. The response to television advertising has varied throughout the country. The type of property and available budget will obviously have a great impact on any decision regarding the use of television. Because of its expense, television is the most costly of the media. Managers should carefully research the success rate of previous television ads in their market areas. If comparable ads cannot be found to guide the manager, the initial financial obligation should be limited to a pilot program that can be used to gauge the success of further advertising. Direct mail advertising. Because of the expense involved to design, write, print, and mail a brochure or flyer, direct mail is effective only in cases where the mailing list contains well-qualified prospects. Industrial and commercial property owners and managers are most likely to use direct mail because they can compile a list of potential tenants for office, retail, or industrial space from the Chamber of Commerce and other local sources, such as the Yellow Pages. This marketing method can be cost effective in terms of advertising expenditure per prospect. The mailing list should include not only prospective tenants, major corporate executives in the case of commercial space, but also key brokers, either local or nationwide, depending on the property's appeal. In either case, the manager's objective is to make knowledgeable, active brokers aware that the property exists and that she is willing to cooperate with them in renting or leasing the space. Brochures. Brochures must be tailored to the recipient's interests and income level and thus are expensive to develop. Elaborate, expensive brochures randomly mailed to a broad readership will not provide the desired result. Unsophisticated or inelegant handbills mailed to prestigious firms might actually provoke a negative response. The more effective advertising brochure will have a central theme and will not try to cover every conceivable point about the property. This theme should run through the brochure's headlines, copy, and illustrations. The brochure cover should set the themes of quality, convenience, and market. The other pages should appeal to the target market by showing how the facility will meet that market's needs. The regional market analysis discussed in Unit 2 should outline vital spying points of the property. These are especially useful when designing brochures and mailing pieces to be sent to national and international tenants that require space in several major cities. Some large property management firms that cater to this type of tenant are geographically widespread. Others use individual managers who travel widely. In either case, the information in the brochure and that gained from the market analysis can motivate the prospect to investigate a particular property. Flyers. Flyers are less complicated, less formal, and less expensive than the brochures just mentioned because they can often be developed on the office computer. Flyers can be a very important marketing tool if presented correctly and to the right people, e.g., present tenants, the best source of finding new residents. They can also be effective when distributed to human resource managers of nearby companies and managers of nearby convenience stores and motels. The flyer should be designed to highlight the dollar amount, cash, or rent credit available to the present resident if permitted by law, as well as any incentives to new tenants, for example, a discounted first month's rent to the approved new resident upon move-in. With little or no special expertise, someone in the office is often capable of using a software program to design an attractive flyer at little expense. Such a flyer should still be printed on good quality paper for the most professional look. Mixed media. An advertising campaign should not be limited to a single medium. For example, direct mail sent to a specially selected group of industries might be supplemented with a billboard placed at the side of a nearby freeway and a sign in the lobby of the property itself. Creativity is especially important. For example, an architect's model of a large development displayed in a glass case at the airport, along with supporting information, might attract the interest of prospective tenants relocating from other cities. Whatever the media mix, the marketing campaign will be more successful if it is backed up with a permanent reference, such as a small sign on the premises identifying the management group or a listing in the yellow pages. Management, promotional efforts, community involvement. Potential tenants are often attracted to a property because of the management firm's or the building's reputation, so it is important for a manager to maintain good relations with the real estate community, the press, and the public at large. This can be done by volunteering to address various interest groups and by sharing professional expertise. Press releases. Another way to enhance the reputation of the manager or the appeal of the property is through press releases, also called news releases. For personal publicity, an interesting factual article about a transaction, an idea the manager is implementing, an educational accomplishment, or a new trend in property management are always newsworthy themes. If the manager is not comfortable writing the news release personally, he should not hesitate to hire an advertising agency or freelance writer. To attract attention to one particular property, a news release sent to local newspapers and publications should highlight the property's significant features, for example, size, amenities, historical importance, conversion or new usage, and striking architecture. This type of release can be particularly helpful in garnering publicity for the initial rental of large new commercial and residential developments. Depending on the topic, real estate journals and other trade magazines might be interested in writing an article from the information in the release. Television coverage often can be arranged for new project announcements, ribbon cuttings, and open houses. The primary advantage of publicity over advertising is that it is virtually free. It costs the manager only the time and effort spent to develop articles and press releases. News releases keep the name of a development or a management firm before prospective tenants and often have more credibility than paid advertising. The advantages of good publicity are so numerous that many large management companies engage independent public relations firms to work for them in this area. Personal selling activities. Although all selling activities have as their ultimate goal the closing of a sale or lease, the property manager should take advantage of all opportunities to personally reach the customer. This means that sales efforts will be directed not only toward brokers and agents who can reach prospects but also toward prospective buyers and tenants. Leasing with broker cooperation. Key policy. One of the most effective ways to market residential, commercial, or industrial space is to cooperate with outside brokers. Today, cooperation between managers and brokers is the rule, not the exception. Broker cooperation can be especially beneficial when renting or leasing a new or very large development. Managers can alert key area brokers to available properties by mailing advertising pieces or newsletters, by sponsoring an open house, or by personal contact. Managers should indicate if they are willing to split the commission fees to be paid any further incentives offered by the owner. Generally, the outside leasing broker with a qualified prospect will send a letter of registration stating the intent and terms of the commission split before bringing the prospect to the manager's building. Many cooperating brokers will remain involved in the negotiations as agents for the tenant. Obviously, the manager is representing the owner, so the manager will be obligated to work with a number of conflicting interests and parties. Many professional real estate organizations constitute a built-in cooperative referral network. This marketing strategy is most practical for properties with more than local appeal, because it enables the manager to reach a target group over a broad geographic area. Members of the Society of Industrial and Office Realtors are, and the National Association of Industrial and Office Parks can assist in leasing industrial space. Managers of residential rental properties can and should make allies of residential real estate agents because it is possible that the agents know of prospects who may not qualify for a 30-year home loan, but who certainly can afford to rent a house or apartment. Again, the manager should clearly indicate the referral fees to cooperating agents and should promptly pay those fees. Direct selling skills. The first part of the marketing process, prospecting, is complete once the prospective tenant comes to the property manager's office or to the building. The manager's job is to convince this consumer, who has already expressed some interest in the property, that this space is more advantageous than any other available in the area. To do so, the manager needs selling skills. Selling skills involve qualifying, dealing with objections, negotiating, and closing techniques. In a right market, the manager could have an open house and, by creating the interest and desire, actually get the tenants to bid against each other. The manager must know how to show the premises and how to suggest judiciously that certain issues might be open to negotiation when the lease is drawn up. The manager also must be familiar with the space so as to answer questions, overcome objections, and point out relevant features to the prospective tenant. Finally, the terms of the lease must be negotiated, drawn up, and executed. Qualifying the prospect. Qualifying the prospect involves a number of factors: space needs, urgency, motivation for moving, and financial qualifications which will be covered later. The manager is placed in a delicate position of learning more about the prospect and selling the prospect on the space, while making a decision as to whether this is the right tenant. Space. Even before making an appointment to show the space, the manager should determine the prospect's needs and precise space requirements. For example, the manager can ask a commercial prospect the square footage that the prospect requires, or a residential prospect might ask about the number of bedrooms the prospect requires. The parties should discuss whether the prospect prefers a freestanding or multi-tenant building, desired price range, parking and transportation needs, the necessity for a traffic count, or other demographic information, and any amenities the prospect requires. Although the questions are slightly different for commercial versus residential, the process is the same. Sometimes prospects do not have an accurate idea of their needs, and the manager should be honest if the initial discussion suggests that the space is not suitable for that client. Rather than waste time showing the space, the manager should take the name and address of the prospect and check to see if a more suitable property is available. A prospect left with a good impression of the building and the management firm may call on the manager for a future transaction. Urgency. A number of questions can be asked to understand the urgency or lack of urgency. Is relocation necessary or optional? When is the move planned? Why are they moving? Is this a temporary location or does the tenant see this as a long-term move? Motives. The manager should study the prospect's motives and how they are expressed because residential, commercial, and industrial tenants differ in their responses. Renting a residence tends to entail a much more emotional decision than selecting office space, so residential property managers must be attuned to the psychological nuances of a property's appearance. Commercial and industrial managers should be armed with facts when dealing with dollar-oriented commercial or industrial prospects, although an intangible such as prestige can enter into their decisions as well. Decision making. An additional point to consider is whether the prospect is the decision maker or someone who is merely making initial inquiries. Particularly with commercial and industrial tenants, the manager must know who has the ultimate power to rent the space before entering into any serious negotiations. The corporate representative who first contacts the manager may or may not have that authority because leasing decisions are sometimes made by a board of directors. The manager should try to involve the primary decision maker in the transaction as soon as possible. This must be handled skillfully so as not to alienate the immediate contact, who may have considerable influence on the decision. More detailed treatment of prospect qualification will be found in later units, which deal with managing specific types of properties. Financial qualification of the prospect is covered in the unit Lease Negotiations. Key policy. Talking about the property in great detail in the manager's office can sometimes be counterproductive. The prospect may visualize something totally different from the oral description and then be disappointed when actually viewing the property. There is no effective substitute for personally escorting the prospect on a tour of the premises. Getting there, the manager should follow the most advantageous route from the office to the premises, using the drive time to point out amenities and services along the way. For example, during the drive to an industrial plant, the manager can show the prospective tenant transportation facilities located in the area. En route to an office complex or shopping center, the manager can describe other tenants on the premises to assure the client that there will be no close direct competition. Traffic patterns and other pertinent features of the neighborhood also can be seen from the car or on the walk to the space in question. Play up positives during the tour. The manager can highlight the advantages of various features and how they might work for the prospect. Whether for commercial, industrial, or residential, the manager can comment on the excellent exterior condition of the building and describe the routine upkeep and operating procedures. Cleanliness of common areas, facilities the building affords its tenants, and management policy regarding tenant behavior are important points to raise with the client. Then the manager should permit the prospect to examine the premises alone. Compare and contrast unimproved commercial space presents the manager with a special problem. First, the prospect has to see the clean, vacant space that is available for lease. Then, if possible, the prospect should be taken through comparable occupied spaces to see the effects of tenant alterations. Determine the prospect's needs. High manager should be selective about the number of units the prospect is shown. Care must be taken to involve the prospect in selecting the properties to view to avoid any appearance of steering. This is particularly true when showing residential properties. If too much space is shown, the decision-making process will become too complicated or the prospect may question the low occupancy. On the other hand, the manager must be able to assess the prospect's preferences and be willing to show additional space if the client is interested in a particular area or unit but is not quite convinced it is suitable. Dealing with objections. Although the manager's job encompasses many different functions, understanding each prospect's requirements is among the most important. Questions and objections can be fielded quickly and intelligently if the manager has previewed the space and qualified the prospect in advance. If unable to answer a question, the manager should admit it, make a note of it, and then get back to the prospect with the information as soon as possible. The admission and the follow-up will demonstrate honesty and professionalism. Some objections can be anticipated and handled before they are raised, particularly as to the condition of the property. The manager might reassure the prospect that such minor details as a leaking faucet will be taken care of prior to occupancy. More substantial requests, such as repainting an entire office area, could be negotiated in the lease terms. Problems such as these could be avoided simply by making sure that the available space is in the best possible condition before showing. Negotiating and closing. Negotiating and closing, critical points in the selling process, are treated in detail later in this course. The property manager may find leasing agents and rental centers helpful as an aid in the whole process. Leasing agents. In-house leasing agents, also called real estate representatives or solicitors, are sometimes retained by property managers as an integral part of the marketing campaign. These representatives disseminate information about the space to be marketed and follow up leads on prospective tenants. Their success hinges on their knowledge and personal selling skills, since they contact prospects directly in an attempt to stimulate interest in the property. The advantage of in-house leasing agents over outside brokers is the additional control the property manager has over their activities. Leasing agents may be paid by a flat referral fee or a split commission arrangement and may work full-time or part-time. Usually the expense of compensating traveling or local agents is justified only for large, relatively expensive commercial and industrial properties. Some owners feel commission agents are expensive, but fees must be compared against total costs of full-time in-house agents, rental centers. Despite the expense, a well-located, expertly staffed, smoothly operating rental center often is the best way to market large residential and commercial complexes. The rental center is a completely finished, attractively furnished space. It helps the prospect to see what the finished product will look like. The decision to use a rental center should be based on the amount of available rental space, the expected rent-up period, anticipated turnover of tenants, and the sophistication of both clients and competitors. Rental centers are most appropriate for large developments, especially new or newly converted properties that must be rented initially. The higher the anticipated tenant turnover, the greater the utility of a rental center, because proper use of the center increases the ratio of new tenants to inquiries and uses time more effectively. These centers are usually located directly within the project and include a display area, furnished models of the types of space available, a closing area, and occasionally the manager's office. Large directional signs should be positioned on the major thoroughfares throughout the area. Promotional aids such as brochures, site plans, floor plans, direct mail flyers, and photographs of the complex can be displayed in the center, along with a scale model of the development to give the prospect an overall sense of the project and a better perspective on its buildings. Interior layouts and amenities. Model space should be clean and attractive, and the furnishings tailored to appeal to the target market. For example, traditional rather than contemporary furniture would be more appropriate for units that will be shown to conservative tenants. When decorating model offices, executive and clerical spaces should be highlighted, and the arrangement should emphasize the flexibility of the units. Managers have quickly and effectively marketed less than premium space with the following technique. The rental center is set up in one of the least attractive areas of the building or project, and the models themselves are available for rental. When the rental center space is leased, another of the less appealing areas can be decorated as the rental center and subsequently rented. Advertising campaign strategy. Learning objective. Discuss how to develop an advertising campaign strategy and how to gauge its effectiveness. Advertising campaigns refer to the media and marketing methods available to stimulate desire and action on the part of potential residents, commercial enterprises, and industrial firms. There is no right or wrong way to market specific rental properties, as each one is unique. Before deciding on any advertising, the manager needs to determine a detailed plan that is shaped by three factors: the type of property, supply and demand, available financial resources. Type of property. The strongest influence over the design of the marketing campaign is the kind of property, as residential, commercial, and industrial properties have unique pools of potential tenants. Also, new, empty properties require a more active initial lease-up campaign than older buildings, which already have most of their space occupied and enjoy an established reputation and referral clientele. Industrial manufacturers in the market for warehouse space often consult an industrial broker rather than the classified section of the newspaper. They often let this broker, sometimes called a straw broker, search and negotiate for them while keeping their identities secret. A large billboard located near an industrial area and easily visible from a major thoroughfare can help draw the attention of these potential tenants. Commercial managers understand the importance of tenant mix and of traffic counts. These managers will often canvass businesses, even those in other locations, in order to find tenants for their own properties. They are involved with civic and trade organizations, and often network extensively with agents in other cities. A large sign posted on or near an office building or in the window of a vacant store might also attract commercial tenants, as will advertising in the weekly, special pull-out business sections promoted by many city newspapers. On the other hand, a family looking for an apartment is more apt to comb the rental section of the newspaper. to canvass a neighborhood for vacancy notices, or increasingly turn to websites such as Facebook or Craigslist. Because residential tenants are often looking for location close to work, close to schools, the most effective way to advertise is often the most simple A for rent sign at the property. Supply and demand. Key policy. The balance between supply and demand in an area can create two different marketing situations for a property. The manager must determine if there is a high or low vacancy rate in the area and plan accordingly. Low vacancy rate. There is little need for a massive marketing program if the units are the size most in demand and if the consumers can afford the current rents. If part of the general management plan includes raising rents, a well-planned promotional effort is required to enhance the prestige of the building in order to generate consumer demand and a higher rental schedule. Impressive, well-designed, and often costly advertisements are needed to build an elite image for a low vacancy property. The desired image can be projected to potential consumers through a modulated, evenly paced advertising campaign running for an extended period. High vacancy rate. When the property has a high vacancy rate, it must be marketed to draw as many potential tenants to the premises as quickly as possible. Spending money on a major advertising campaign and thus increasing expenses runs counter to the natural instincts of some property managers, which is to cut expenses when business is bad. In fact, the best way to avoid further losses is to advertise and promote the property more heavily. The focus, force, and frequency of advertisements used in a high vacancy market will differ from those in a stable market. Attracting potential tenants for immediate occupancy of vacant units is a more urgent marketing concern than is upgrading the image of the property. The emphasis of the advertising campaign in the former situation will shift from quality to quantity, because short-term results are of greater economic import than long-range benefits. Tracking costs and effectiveness. The prospect generating cost of various advertising media, promotional efforts, and sales activities must be calculated to gauge the effectiveness of a marketing campaign. The expense of marketing property is often figured on a cost per prospect per lease basis. By keeping records, a property manager should be able to predict the number of prospects who must see the available space before a lease is signed and use these numbers to determine basic costs. Here are some examples to consider. A high-rise apartment that rents for $1,200 a month may have to be viewed by 5 prospects before it is leased. A small store in a strip shopping center might need 20 potential viewers. Suppose the manager of the high-rise apartment building spent $600 on a display ad in order to find a tenant. The cost per prospect would be a staggering $120 per prospect. However, the same $600 ad to find a tenant for the small store would cost only $30 per prospect, a more acceptable figure. Of course, these examples assume that the $600 AD would produce the required number of prospects. To rent the same high-rise apartment, the manager may run a $75 classified ad for 5 consecutive days to find a tenant. The total cost would be $375, which the building owner may consider quite high. However, the expense is justifiable because it results in a 1-year lease worth $14,400 $1,200 per month times 12 months. Suppose the manager only advertises once a week in the Sunday edition of the newspaper. The required 5 ads still only cost $375, but it will take 5 weeks to find a tenant for the property. So in addition to the $375 advertising costs, the manager is losing about $1,500 in rental payments. Under these circumstances, finding the new tenant will cost about $1,875. This is a considerable amount of money, and the manager may want to think about other ways to attract a tenant. The manager may be able to attract 5 prospects with 1 advertisement by lowering the rental by $100 to $1,100 a month. The cost of the rent reduction over the 1-year lease period equals $1,200 times 12, and the ad costs $75. Using this method, the total cost to find a tenant is only $1,275 instead of the $1,875 discussed previously. This would mean a savings per tenant of about $600. Obviously, it is imperative that the manager use good judgment when making marketing decisions, before deciding to lower the rent rather than spend more on advertising. The manager must also consider how decreasing the rental rate for one unit will affect similar space in the building. A rent reduction might jeopardize the entire rental schedule of the building.
Good job, everyone. You made it to the end of the chapter. let's just go over some key points, right? The marketing goals of the property manager is rapid rental to good clientele that is profitable, right? We want to get good clients and make it profitable. Designing an effective advertising and promotional campaign depends on these three main factors: the type of property, supply and demand, and the available financial resources. Supply and demand is the area that also may determine the strategy for a property. The force, focus, and frequency of advertisements used in high vacancy markets from those geared to a stable market that involves a shift from quality to quantity in a stable market. The availability of financial resources is the third market influence of the marketing strategy. In general, a marketing campaign should use several methods in combination. A property manager can increase the rental ratios simply through good promotional efforts, building on the reputation of the manager or the property itself. Personal selling activities are directed towards brokers as well as individual prospects. Broker cooperation campaigns allow the manager to cooperate legally and financially with other brokers when leasing new, very large developments. Employing in house leasing agents can be a cost effective way in large properties. Before showing the space, remember that the manager should discuss the prospect's spatial and requirements, right? If the property in question is not suitable for them, then you should either show them other property or give them other options altogether. The manager can convince the prospects that the space in question is more advantageous than any other available space by skillfully showing the premise, highlighting the important features and benefits, and knowing with outside brokers should certain that any broker who brings a prospect to the building is well acquainted with the space. Although rental centers offer an exclusive way to show all types of property, they can be very, very expensive. And this is a case study. So, upon graduating, Bruno enrolled in the state school and him and his wife got married. They later moved to a campus apartment project. He then took up a manager role at the complex and started in that process of managing those buildings, right? What type of media might Gomez consider using to meet the owner's two goals and why? Create a brief outline of a marketing program for Gomez that might improve the image and prestige of the apartment. And number three, would this be a good situation for the use of a rental center? Why or why not? All right. Good work, everyone. I'll see you in the next unit.